This is Tales from the Pros, where business leaders and influencers share their stories of inspiration, struggles, and successes. And I'm your host, Michael Giorgio. Hey everyone, welcome to Tales from the Pros. This is Michael Giorgio, co-founder at Imagine Ovation here in Raleigh, North Carolina on this beautiful Friday. And we have a very special guest here today. His name is Sean Maroney, CEO at BetaBox, also located here in the Triangle, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep, right here in Raleigh.
Awesome.
Yep.
So Sean, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here, man. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely, I appreciate it for the invite.
Yeah.
Very excited to be here.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. So, I did a lot of research on BetaBox. I love the overall concept idea. We were talking about motives before. I think what you're doing is awesome. Talk to people a little bit about how you started it, why you started it, just overall a little bit about BetaBox.
Absolutely. So, for those that don't know in the area, BetaBox is a hands-on learning company. We're all about delivering hands-on learning to students anywhere, in any geography, any location. And we do it out of shipping containers, which is something that's unique to BetaBox. And the way schools think of us is a field trip in their parking lot. So if you actually consider all of the costs associated with a field trip, a normal field trip, you've got to think about feeding those kids at the middle of the day. You've got to have a teacher get the permission forms collected, which takes a lot of time away from actually teaching or building curriculum. You got to pay for the bus. You got to actually take that day out of school. There's transport time. There's a lot of hidden costs associated with that. And there's also safety risks potentially leaving the campus. So there's a lot of complexities, but there's also a lot of opportunities because you're able to offer informal, hands-on, inquiry-based learning. And that's why field trips are great. So what we've done is sort of flip the field trip, where we'll go right to the school's parking lot, right in front of the classroom. The kids they just eat at the cafeteria. You don't need permission slips. So
portable field trip.
Exactly. Field trips on demand.
Yeah, awesome.
And it takes about 50% of the cost away when it's all said and done, taking that human time into account. So that's what schools know us as. And we have STEM stuff, we have design stuff. So think design thinking, 3D printing, laser cutting. We pretty much check off all the buzzwords. IoT, virtual reality. We're offering experiences in all of those arenas and areas for schools throughout the Southeast. And recently, throughout this year, we've actually gone national. So we've gone through 28 states this year. And then
and when did you say you started it?
So we started it it was kind of a hazy beginning. We started it in 2014, really, while I was in school at NC State.
Okay.
And started it with these two other guys, and it really came from this one day where we were in this program funded by the NSF in partnership with Stanford, and they were basically about taking entrepreneurial engineering students at the undergraduate level, getting them together, and pretty much seeing what happens. So we were in this sort of at this event, like a conference in DC, and the conference had wrapped up, everyone was gone, and we just pulled up some chairs and we were talking, me and a group of other folks, about what we were passionate about, what we were interested in doing during school, after school, and then we all just gravitated on something interesting, which we had all helped our universities work on maker spaces or entrepreneurial environments. So I was involved with the NC State Garage when I was studying there, and the two other guys also at their respective universities were working on something similar. But we noticed this problem where, there was always somebody at the university that wanted one of these hands-on maker spaces with all this cool equipment where, students could come and work on their business ideas or what projects or engineering projects, whatever else it was. But they often couldn't convince the decision maker at the university to actually write the check. And so there was also a lot of knowledge gap. They didn't really know how to do it. So we said, hey, we'll consult with universities and we'll help them get these maker spaces because we really believe in them and we have the experience of setting it up on our own. So that was the first idea. And we did 3 projects with 3 universities, and those 3 projects taught us a few things. One, we don't like being consultants for universities. Hard process, right? It's a lot of complexity around anybody that's worked with universities or governments has a similar probably story. But that's one thing that we learned. This other thing we learned was the decision maker needed to see the proof. Like they needed to see it before they could go for it, because there's a risk aversion there of a new thing. What is a makerspace? I don't know what that is. We needed to show them something before they were going to actually buy in to greenlight a whole big building or a big architecture project around it. So that's when we had the idea, hey, why don't we just throw a bunch of stuff, like 3D printers, for example, in a container, in a Connex, a 20-foot shipping container, and we just drop it off. That's all it happened. So on a very like tight budget, we got a really crappy, rusty container.
Bootstrap, right?
Totally
no funded.
Totally bootstrapped at this stage.
Cool.
Yeah, and we just tried it out. It was a pretty cheap experiment, and we actually created a little startup weekend. I don't know if you're familiar with Startup Weekend, but
I don't think so.
These cool weekend events. They're, I believe, now operating out of TechStars. It's like a subsidiary of TechStars.
Okay.
But, you know, they pop these things up all over the world, and it's like a 2-day pitch your idea, work on a project. So we organized one of those in the Triangle around maker stuff. So like hardware, IoT, that kind of thing. And then we put the container at this event, and people loved it. They were like, "This is amazing. We've got all this equipment. We're helping, and we help their projects, right?" And then a couple of universities were kind of sponsoring that event, and they said, "Oh, we want this." And then that was UNC and Duke, so those were our first paying customers for the container, and they loved the container way more than the consulting that we were trying to sell them. And we were talking beforehand about focus and how you took the focus to go towards your mobile apps versus the marketing. We were talking about focus. That's a principle that we have at BetaBox. It's one of our core values, actually. Pressure equals force over area, which is an engineering equation, and basically what it means is you can only do a certain amount of stuff. You got your force, your hours in the day. You got your area. What are you doing? How many projects do you have? What are you spending your time on? And then you got your impact, your pressure, like how much you can actually exert in those directions. And so we decided to kill the consulting, focus on the box, and then from there a lot of future doors opened, which we'll talk more about.
That's awesome, man. That's cool. Wow. So did you always see yourself as an entrepreneur, starting this thing? Or did you were you one of those kids that you're always innovative, you're thinking, what, I want to start my own thing, I can't work under anybody?
Yeah.
Or did you, for me I've said this on other podcasts before that, some of the other guys I've interviewed, that for me it was really a blessing in disguise how it happened. So I always had an entrepreneurial spirit, I would say, but never thought, I'm going to start a business when I'm 23, 24 years old. But it just kind of was a blessing in disguise. Just kind of happened, and I took the opportunity, and it was the best decision in my life. Was it something like that for you, or how did it happen?
I think everybody that has found their element, whether it's entrepreneurship or engineering or some sort of scientific field, I think they've always got that story from when they were a kid. We actually think about a lot about this at BetaBox, but if you think about like that Nobel Prize winner or that famous entrepreneur, they're up on stage giving the talk about whatever important event it is along the way, the Stanford graduation ceremony speech or the Nobel Prize acceptance, whatever that moment is, and they'll probably at some point tell a story about when they were a kid, they had this one moment where it all just clicked, and then they went from there. So for me, it was always making stuff and trying to sell stuff. So I have all these weird stories along the way when I was growing up of nobody told me to do it, and I was just like selling something that I had made, and everyone was confused as to what was going to happen. I'll give you an example. So there's these things called cicadas, which probably people are familiar of, and they come out every 17 years. They're like these, 1.5-inch long bugs that make a horrible noise, and they're like all over the place. And for some reason, when I was a little kid, I thought it would be cool, or I thought people would want to remember, these cicadas that came around. That was the idea that was in my head. So what happened was, and if you don't remember, they just die everywhere. There's like you're stepping on crunchy cicadas everywhere. And for some reason, I saw this as like an opportunity, which was I got all the little 6- and 7-year-old kids in the area where I was growing up to collect just the wings of them, and they would just bring them to my door in like little baggies, little Ziploc baggies filled with these bug wings. And what I did was I glue them to buttons, like little normal buttons, like hot glue them to buttons, put a string on the back, put them in a box, and I would, like hawk them around my school for like $5 or $7. And I would just sell these things, everyone was confused, but I made like several $100s doing this, and it was a lot of money as a little kid.
You always see the stories of like Gary Vee when he talks about
the wine.
Right, they say, well, most entrepreneurs are good salesmen. Isn't that right? So you were selling kind of younger.
You're always selling, like whether you may not even if you're more of like a technical person or more on an ops side, or you're always selling as a founder. You're selling employees to join your company, investors to give you money. It's all trust, and it's all, hey, this is what we're going to do, and like here's why. It's everything you're doing is sales really, and a lot of maybe more technical founders have like a negative stigma around sales, and I'm kind of weird in the middle where I've got half of that, but then also I studied programming when I was in high school and engineering in college, so I was always kind of like one foot in both camps. So I was always building stuff and then trying to sell stuff. So that's where I was, had many stories around that, and that's just kind of one example of the early story. But I didn't really know what it was called. I didn't know it was called entrepreneurship or whatever. And then that more emerged when I came to college and connected with like my people, found my community at NC State that were doing similar stuff. And there's some important professors in the college that helped that process.
That's cool, man. That's cool. So with this company, I mean, do you feel like in all honesty, how difficult do you think it is to actually build a business now that you've been with it for a few years? Is it really as hard as they say it is? Because you see some people on TV, you see all these different successful startups, and you're like, man, it seems like they got there easy. They got all this funding, but you guys were bootstrapped.
Yeah,
right?
We were
yourself,
bootstrapped for the first year and a half. There was about $65,000 of grants that we got mixed in there, and then in 2016 we raised some debt from some local angel investors, and then now in 2017 we raised some more money on equity with some investors based in Houston to start expanding our operations.
But, and you said angel, or are they venture?
They're angels. They're
smaller.
They're smaller guys, and we've just been talking to them for the longest time, and we like them as partners. So we decided to work with them, and the money kind of came along with that partnership. But in total, we've raised less than $500K, so right around that $400K level, and. Most of our growth has been funded by our revenue. So we are like a profitable startup.
Awesome.
And we've been building any projects that we have off of this customer revenues, aside from this more recent fundraising. But it's obviously difficult. I mean, I think anybody's going to tell you the war stories. I sort of think about it in you've got thrive mentality and survival mentality, and you're constantly within a day going between those two, because you've got the long-term thinking where you want to think as a founder that you're building a huge skyscraper, right? So you want to think long term, and you want to make decisions long term.
Yep.
But your face is getting ground against like the buzzsaw of survivability, whether that's cash flow, a key employee leaving, whatever. There's always going to be a crisis. So to be able to have that capability to sort of navigate between I might die tomorrow, but I still need to think about building a skyscraper. Is probably is one of those like important skills to be able to make it happen, and to not to say that I'm some huge success. I mean, to the extent to which BetaBox is still alive, I appreciate that for sure. Yeah. So to have it continue to go and be profitable, and we've passed the $1 million revenue mark at the beginning of this year. Great. And growing from there. So it's on track to be a win over time, and somewhere between failure and unicorn is where we'll land up, somewhere in the middle there.
That's cool. So you definitely believe in the saying that being an entrepreneur is really, you got to think of it more of a marathon than a sprint.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
You definitely agree with that?
Yeah, long-term thinking is key. If you make short-term decisions, if you try to get 20% more out of a customer on this deal, you're going to lose that customer over the long term, perhaps, as an example. And there's millions of other things where if you make short-term decisions, you'll eventually lose. So it's about thinking about the long term. It is a marathon. Think about this as a 10-year plus commitment of your time. And the only reason that you should even start a startup is because you actually believe in like the problem that it solves, and you actually see an opportunity to make a difference. Because if you're just looking for like the best risk-adjusted return over time, don't do this. It doesn't make sense, especially something new. So I agree. So if you're going to start something that if you're going to start a pre-existing business model, maybe a clone of something else that has existed before, I kind of call that add an S principle. The reason for that is me and my mom love to play Scrabble, and I would always make her very, very mad because I would wait until I got the S, and I would just add S's onto her amazing words that she would use and rack up points. So that's one way to go about doing a startup too. If you want, this will happen in second-tier markets or other countries where they see something that works in the U.S., some novel innovation, and then they'll make a clone of that. A lot of your questions have already been answered around. Is a consumer actually going to do this? Can we make this profitable? A lot of those questions have already been figured out, so you don't have to answer those questions for yourself. And if you're in somewhere where you haven't figured out all of those questions around consumer adoption, or your product, is it going to work, is the technology going to, if you've got a lot of miracles in series that have to occur for you to be successful, that just increases the risk. With us, it's not a completely novel thing. There are STEM boxes that go around and stuff, but there's not. Yeah. We are sort of a sole source of what we do. So we have had to figure out a lot of problems beneath the scenes that you may not think of. Like, how do you move containers around efficiently? An original flaw in our thinking was that our business with the containers was going to be a week or more rental length. So a school would get it almost as a mobile classroom replacement, 1 week, 2 week, longer term leasing. We realized there was almost no money there, and schools didn't want it. What they wanted was an experience. They wanted the field trip. They wanted staff on site. They wanted consumables provided.
And it's for a day, right?
It's for 1 to 2 days is usually the length of our current format. And then we have a week-long format too, which is more of an after-school program.
Cool.
But to think of it as a 1 to 2 day thing, 100 kids a day, about $10 or less per student, and it's very much an experience. It's not we're renting you a lab that you have to go configure yourself. We're really providing an experience for the kids. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
But you got to figure out, okay, how do we move these things around 1 to 2 days each, right? These are big shipping containers, so we have to figure that out. How do we crack a business model that works within education? That's a whole other challenge.
Yeah, that's a challenge.
You come across these solutions, and that just increases the risk or increases the difficulty of what you're doing. Probably
just because as well, I'm assuming the schools are the ones who pay you, right? That's how you guys make
mostly
profit.
So about 35 to 40% of our rentals are directly paid for by schools. That's public schools, private schools, sometimes museums and other groups will rent us, and they're pulling that money from grants, PTA, existing budgets, school district budgets. That's about 35 to 40%. So what happened about a year and a half ago was we figured out how to partner with industry to deploy our service at broader scales. So the remaining percentage chunks of those revenues are from our quote unquote powered by BetaBox business, where we're doing co-branded content and co-branded boxes with larger, usually STEM companies, to deploy these educational experiences. So a good example of that is we have something with a large life sciences and pharmaceuticals company, MilliporeSigma, that has been operating a 20-city national tour of one of our boxes, doing all life sciences experiences, gene editing, DNA extraction, brain cancer research, biological nanobot design. We've designed all this interesting life science-oriented content.
That's
and
pretty cool.
They've done it in like 25 states. Several 100,000 kids have gone through the program. I don't want to quote the exact number because the program's not over yet.
Yeah.
But it started in California.
Yeah.
And it's gone pretty much through all the states between there, and it's ending in Rockville, Maryland. And the great thing about this is they prepaid us to deploy this 1-year program, and it's 100% free to the schools that we go to. So because of this company, MilliporeSigma, now all of these schools, lots of free and reduced lunch, low-income schools in difficult places and in environments, they're able to get this educational program not for $10 a student, not for $5 a student, for $0 a student, and that's been major. So, like I said earlier, about 70% of what we do is now through some sort of partnership with an organization that wants to have impact in their community in this way.
So you're also, are you primarily targeting just schools, or you're going to get more into companies, businesses? Do you think like for example, like you could probably use this, use these little hubs as like maybe test labs, stuff like that?
Yeah. So there's there's a nearly infinite amount of use cases that you could potentially put into a BetaBox. We've had people want to use it for like packaging at apartment complexes. We've had people want it like packaging storage. We've had people want it like Amazon lockers and that kind of stuff. We've had people want to use it for innovation labs. We actually have a customer that uses it for pop-up innovation and co-creation with consumers in like Target parking lots and stuff, where they come up with new product ideas. A lot of different ideas, and we've messed around and experimented with pretty much everything that there is in these directions. We've also talked about leasing them directly to startups. If you've got a phase of your Gantt chart where you need an electronics lab for your project or your new product development, lease it from us, and then we take it away, and you don't have to buy all of that equipment. We've evaluated a lot of these business models, and what we've ultimately determined is, again, pressure equals force over area. We've got to focus, and we went back to what do we intrinsically care about? And for me, that's education. Like, I think if you pick an industry to have impact, education is a great one, because it's highly leveraged. You've got an impact that can happen to one student that can be leveraged across that entire kid's career if you've actually made a difference. Maybe you've pushed them into an aerospace field or something, and now that person is 10 years from now designing the rocket that goes to Mars, right? So you can have a lot of leverage over time if you have impact in education. And then, of course, it's
future of America.
There's just so many problems and challenges associated with it. So that's kind of why we focus on the education piece. And within that, we focus on really K-12, specifically middle and elementary school for now. And that's really the focus of our brand, BetaBox, and our model. Not to say containers can't be used for other things or that there's not money to be made in those other things. We've just chosen to kind of focus in that area that we want to have the impact.
That's cool. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I can imagine, like, we talked a little bit about bootstrapping the business. That's definitely difficult. I'm sure you recognize that starting the business, right? Mm-hmm. That's why you were seeking some funding. Mm-hmm. So help you guys, scale and grow quicker and hire more people. And, did you find, like, what were some of the biggest challenges you had in trying to get funding?
And trying to get funding?
Talking to these angels.
Sure.
Was it the pitch? Was it your idea? Was it proof of concept? What was kind of some of the biggest problems that you had?
I think that the interesting thing about BetaBox is it takes the right type of investor that kind of understands what we're attempting to do. And first backing up, like, is raising money even the right thing for this kind of company?
Right.
Is it a lifestyle business? Is it a unicorn? Where does it fit in? And we're ultimately like a linear to, not exponentially, but we're like a doubling every year, tripling every year type of company that can build off of its own cash flows if executed properly. But it's an execution business. This is not a technology breakthrough that's going to lead to a 10x return over a year or 2 years. It's thinking about telling the story in the right way to the right type of investor first, right? So picking which doors to knock on is 80% of it.
They need to understand your vision. So that's definitely a tip you can give. You can give people is don't just get any investor. Make sure that they really have their aligned with the same goals,
and make sure that your company is aligned with their investment strategy, right? Like, I think reverse engineer it. Entrepreneurs are way too focused on, I just need money, so I'm going to go talk to every living body out there that might have some money, until I get something. Well, the spray and pray is going to kill you, because what's going to happen is like a little drop of food coloring in a empty glass. It's going to spread through the whole community. It's going to instantly, everyone's going to know that you're just shopping around for funds, and you may or may not have something. And so we were very slow. I mean, we would rather be bootstrapped for longer than raise a lot of money. I think if you're choosing right now, should I raise money? Should I not raise money? Except for the edge cases around like real technology breakthroughs, where there's a very tight time window within which you've got to capitalize on your opportunities, so you can grab all the market share, winner take all market, et cetera, et cetera. If you're not in one of those, it makes sense to string yourself out as long as you can on your own funds. And I think the number one reason for that is you force your thing to actually make money, to feed itself. So if you can really push your thing to find its niche, find its profitability, even though it's going to be more painful in the short term, you're ultimately going to benefit from that pain in the long term, because you're going to be less dependent on exterior funds or third-party funds to come in, because if you just want to go slower, you can just keep building. You're going to retain a little bit more of your company. You're going to probably find customers and business models that may work faster, because you've got the fear of survival in the background, right? And so things become very real, even though it's obviously potentially more painful. Things become very real, very quick, and it creates that fire to keep going. At least it does for me, maybe not for everyone, but I've just found bootstrapping to be an extremely healthy thing to do if you're thinking long term about, I'd rather have more pain now or whatever else. So I definitely would recommend bootstrapping as long as possible if you're in the position to do so.
So I'm assuming your investors are pretty happy. You said you're right now.
I hope so.
You guys are.
I don't know. They'll probably listen to this, so they'll probably email me if they are or not.
I'm sure they're happy. I mean, it seems like you guys have an amazing concept, and you're building a brand. And we talked about motives. You're doing it for the right reasons. You're helping these kids out. You're inspiring innovation. There's a lot of things that you're doing right. And I think that I'm assuming that the investors who funded you guys, they saw that they had the same. They saw your vision, they believed in it, like we talked about, making sure that they're on the same page with you. I'm sure they're
absolutely.
very, very happy.
And then the thing is, folks are going to invest in your idea and you. So I think you know, everyone makes mistakes along the way, and if you think
of
about,
course.
First, does your idea line up with their investment profile and what they're interested in and passionate about? And also, you know, are you the person? So something I've had to think a lot about as, you know, just a young kid with no idea what he's doing, trying to figure out what's happening as he goes along, is a lot of the weaknesses that you have yourself. You know, like a big thing that I went through was what I'd call like identity association. So a lot of founders, younger ones, I would say, especially, at least if it's like their first go around, you identify your self-worth so much with the company that you're starting, and I think that leads to a lot of additional stress that is completely not talked about, because we're all crushing it, right? Everything's amazing all the time. There's no problems anywhere. Since we're all crushing it all the time, I wish it was that way.
Oh my God!
But just to decouple, you know, your self-worth from the outcomes of the company is like a huge psychological gift that once you have cracked, you become a lot healthier as a founder. To say like, yeah, we lost that deal, but that doesn't mean I'm a bad person. It means we're going to try again next time. There's like this old like Taoist story around this farmer, and basically I'm not going to take too long on it, but basically the idea is there's this farmer. He's got this this farm obviously, and he's got this horse that runs away, and his neighbors come over to him, and he says, they're like, "Oh, what a hardship! It's so your horse has run away." And he goes, "Maybe." And then the next day, the horse comes back with 5 other wild horses that he's attracted, and the guys come to him and they go, you know, "Oh wow, what an amazing thing! You've got all these horses now." He goes, "Maybe." But then the next day, his kid rides one of the wild horses, breaks his foot. Oh, what a hardship, right? And then the day after that, there's a lot going on at this farm. The day after that, a guy from the empire comes to draft young, strapping lads to join the military forces that are going to go, you know, fight Genghis Khan or whoever. And since he's got the broken foot, they don't take him. And then they go back, "Oh, how wonderful your son can say maybe." And the moral of the story is, you know, some things are good, some things are bad. If you think long term, things tend to change in the long run if they were good or bad. So just think that way. You know, that short term problem may end up being the opportunity later if you just kind of disassociate yourself from the outcomes and just keep moving.
Yep. You're going to face a lot of obstacles, just a matter of overcoming them, learning from them, improving, taking, you know, baby steps, baby improvements every single day. That's what I always tell my employees. I say, guys, like, listen, just baby steps every day of improvement. You know what I mean? If we try to find one thing to improve every single day, 365 days a year, that's a lot of improvement.
Absolutely.
So it's just, even though you're gonna have a lot of struggles, we'll talk about challenges and struggles in a little bit, but I mean, if you continue to improve, regardless of the struggles, you're gonna be at another level the next year. You know what I mean? So,
absolutely. And really, at the end of the day, what is it really all about, right? Like we're creatures built on evolution. Companies are the same. They're just collections of evolution-based creatures, and we're just going to continue moving forward, evolving, becoming the best version of yourself, becoming the best company that you can be, focusing on process, focusing on execution and excellence, and just being better each day, one foot in front of the other. Like that is like the successful win, like the big wins, the big deal, the big whale that you close or whatever else, you know, those are lagging indicators of like a healthy, functioning, evolving organization. So just focus on those as a leader, and you probably will do pretty well.
Absolutely. Cool. Jumping a little bit towards the you know, a little more on the business side, I would say specifically marketing. So you guys do experimental marketing.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So not in terms of how you market yourself, just the type of business that you are. How would you compare that to digital marketing?
Experiential marketing versus digital
versus
marketing?
digital. Do you think experiential is kind of, is that what you think digital is kind of fading away, or do you think experiment, because people want to see, they want to touch things, they want to, you know what I mean? And I don't see too many people using experiential marketing more than digital. You know what I mean? I think digital is booming.
Sure, absolutely. In terms of volume revenue, of course, digital marketing is by far, I mean, you know, your experiential marketing is very much a cottage industry. I mean, and by the way, folks will come to us to say, "Hey, we want to use your trailers." Well, they're not trailers. I don't know why I just said that. You know, that's what they say in their emails. I have to correct them. Your boxes as
your boxes
as experiential marketing, you know, trailers or boxes or whatever else. They come to us and ask us that, and you know, it's not really our focus. We'll try to help if possible. It seems It seems to be ticking up. I think the pop-ups would be the word that I've seen pop up a lot more and more recently. And all of those are digital physical integrations. So it's not just, hey, here's a physical only experience, experiential only. You know, it's connecting it to an app. It's you know, going to a website later. You know, there's a lot of it's a hybrid approach very much. I was recently at a conference in Boston last week called Hub Week, and 50 shipping containers there. We were one of them, and you know, it's all digital physical. It's, there's a physical interaction, but here we're showing you this new API that we're launching, and then here's where you can. It's a lot of integration that's happening in the experiential marketing word. Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Cool.
Tie it back.
So you would consider your company, I mean, definitely Internet of Things, parts of it.
I mean, not really. The place that we would dabble with IoT would be within our experiences. So one plug for a customer that I'm very, very excited about is locally, we've got IBM Watson partnered with us to deploy hands-on experiential learning for IoT experiences throughout the region. So they've got a really cool thing called TJBot, which is like a laser-cut Raspberry Pi
Raspberry Pi, yeah, I've seen those.
And you can build a little chatbot, and you can also build a little robot that can do tone analysis and sentiment analysis through Twitter to basically change the color of the light on there. So I mean, we have experiences that are really pure IoT. As a broader company, you know, we're not really an IoT company, but we plug in cool little things along the way. Like we built this little thing little Raspberry Pi thing to track our trucks, like asset tracking, like internal stuff, so we know like where in the country our trucks are. That's kind of what I was
talking about.
We have those pieces embedded within what we do.
Right. So I mean, you're able to see. I mean, through your. I'm gonna call them boxes. What should I call them?
Beta boxes is fine. Let's utilize the trademark.
All right. So these beta boxes. All right. So you go to, let's just say you're in Charleston, South Carolina. So you go there, visit some schools. Are you able to see which areas are more effective? Like, if if these boxes are making more of an impact to these kids rather than Raleigh, you see what I'm saying? Things like that you can track.
Yeah, we track
because you can see every area. I mean,
absolutely. We track a lot.
Different.
We track a lot of stuff. We also we get a lot of anecdotal feedback as well from teachers around the experience, and we have all of our field people track volume during the day of kids, but also like engagement, that physical engagement. How long are kids interacting with stuff, and then tracking that regionally is really interesting, and we're using that for our own purposes because we're thinking about expanding and which markets are the best for us to expand into.
Right.
And we're also using it just because it's really interesting because it's a reflection of the education system. I mean, part of our mission is if we can increase the percentage of a student's day, a student anywhere, that is learning in a hands-on way, inquiry-based, asking questions, being curious, and then the educational system sort of falling behind them to layer in some key fundamental concepts, then that would be a huge win. If we can just shift, schools more towards that modality of teaching by showing the possibilities, then we're winning. And if we can actually track over time as we go and recur to go to schools again and again and again, is that increasing, right? Are we seeing that? Are we seeing that tick up? And how's that changing? So, I mean, that's stuff that we're tracking throughout different places for sure.
And when you have these students go into the beta boxes, they're building prototypes. They have, all these kids are so intelligent, man. Yep. It's crazy how smart these kids are.
It is, yeah.
And they have so many. There's just so many amazing ideas. And these kids are the future of America. I mean, they are
literally, yeah,
right?
tautologically, yeah.
So, in essence, like, how do you ever get the question of what's really the process of building a prototype? I'm sure a lot of people want to hear that because we get, for my company, we get a lot of. People asking us, what's considered a minimum viable product? What's considered an MVP? What's considered a prototype? You know what I mean? So do you have steps that you tell these students of, hey, kids, like this is what you have to do to build something. It may not be something you're obviously going to sell. I mean, you have 3D printers there in these beta boxes. You have all these different gadgets and things to build a physical product with.
Yeah.
But I'll
storytell like a day in the life of what maybe like a pretend you're whoever's listening, a fifth grader that is walking up to a beta box and you're at one of our design thinking sessions, which is going to be the best, the closest thing. And we run a process very similar to the Stanford D School design thinking process, and that's a Googleable thing, and you can research that. They have online classes and a lot of great resources associated with that. But what you're doing as this fifth grader that's showing up to this beta box is you're going to immediately within 5 minutes start collaborating with somebody, and you're going to be given an open-ended theme. Usually we'll do something like, how do you make your teacher's life better? And then it starts with interviews, right? It just starts with, getting the empathy piece, like putting yourself in the shoes and of the person that you're building for. And then I think a lot of people know this general process of, the empathy, the prototyping, the testing, the experimenting, the iterating. A lot of people are familiar with that general process. A very narrow subset of the people that are familiar with that process actually, drink the Kool-Aid because it feels like it's slower in the short term, even though it makes you go faster in the long term, that short term, long term thinking. But the pieces that are interesting for me along the way is like, where do people get stuck, or where do people get confused, or where do people try to jump too fast? So a lot of people skip over, the volume of initial stakeholder interviews. People skip past that a lot. And then the other piece that's interesting is people really undercut the soft prototyping. So people are I think the incentives of this type of thing, of this new project or new product development, you want to jump to scalability or really build polished stuff, I think, too early. So I think that if everyone, no matter if they're this fifth grader that I'm talking about, or somebody at a larger enterprise designing a product, is how can you scale back your prototype to paper and scissors and like pipe cleaners? Is there a way to do that? And we actually call that, we ripped off a terminology from this guy Tom Chi that worked at Google, and he worked on Google Glass originally. And he's got this amazing term called speed of thought prototyping. And basically what that means, it's before the 3D printers, before the laser cutter, before balsamic, before whatever it is, Envision, but it's even before that, before any code, and it's just like literally like paper and laying stuff out. And the story that he's got around that is you can learn. The story that has helped me pitch this when I'm giving a design thinking session, I've done this with, the Army, and they're like, oh, we have no idea what you're talking about, and like, why can't we just make something real, So you got to sell them on a story of, why am I actually going to do soft prototyping, like on paper or whatever, before I just jump into it. And you can learn a lot of really important concepts. For example, this Google Glass, so the first thing they learned in like 2 hours, there's video online about this, but they learned within 2 hours of using chopsticks and paper and tape and puff balls and stuff. They made a prototype, and instead of taking 3 months to do it, they found that in 2 hours they just had to design the Google Glass to have the batteries behind the ear. And the reason for that was the weight would come off the front of the face, and the ear would act like a fulcrum, and then that would make it feel a lot lighter. So they learned this important like engineering design requirement very, very quickly, without having to do like any actual work. That's the kind of thing that can like make a difference in a new product development schedule. So I think that's like the one piece where people just kind of skip over it because it sounds like soft or fluffy, and it's like, well, why am I going to take a half day to like make something out of pipe cleaners? That doesn't make sense.
But I know what you guys are doing, and which is amazing. That's why I love it. It's like when you're hands-on, you actually do it yourself. You're actually building it. Yep. I think, for at least when I do this, the brain, you learn so much quicker than you just reading an article or even watching a video, or you know what I mean? I mean, visual is better than just reading, but I mean, when you're actually doing it, that's the power of experimental marketing, right?
Exactly. And like I mean, even though we've skewed as a culture, we've skewed so heavily digital, we have to think about our roots. We're like physical people. We are physical people in 3D space, regulated by the fourth dimension of time. Like we are not flatlanders in a digital universe. So we have evolved and learned to think in 3D and think tactically and visually, and take all of those sensory inputs that we're taking in to inform the neural configurations that are happening, which make us come up with ideas. So just thinking of us as like these physical people, it definitely makes sense to keep physical components to like what you're doing, and there's faster paths to innovation there. And the other big thing about this is environment. What environment are you learning in? What environment are you building in? Makes a huge difference. So if you think about, for example, before I was doing BetaBox, I was working as a design engineer at an energy company, and I worked at a really crappy desk in the middle of nowhere in this massive facility, and it was not an exciting, innovative environment, and that's where everyone else worked, in a similar little cubicle, and like very little innovation was coming out of this company. They were riding on the coattails of some patents from the 80s, right? And they were just taking profits until their eventual, innovator's dilemma demise, right? That's what was happening at that company. And a big piece of it was, could you change the environment? So we think about that a lot at BetaBox. That's part of the reason we use containers instead of trailers or anything else, is that environment is so key to the mindset, because we are these physical people. So we're thinking about, how can that learning environment or the innovation environment, whatever it is, how can that inform or be like a sous chef? If you think of your space that you're in as like a sous chef to the chef that's designing, right? So we have like the expo markers in the walls. All the walls are whiteboards. We're insetting TVs now into things, and wood floors, and make it look nice and inviting and exciting, and then get the basics done, like AC and heating and cooling, so you don't think about all that stuff. So you're freed up. You're not constrained by the environment, and you feel like you can click into that like more creative stage. And obviously in office design and everything is a big area, but it's a place where you can have a lot of impact. If you want to try to reshape the mindsets of the folks that are doing the designing, reshape the space in which they're doing the
environment in which they're working in. Cool. And even the team around them is important too.
Oh, that's huge. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
There's some good workshops, by the way, if folks are interested in the team design. I mean, you've got to create a conducive environment for the innovation to occur. So, people may have been familiar with like yes and, or a lot of the improv rules that have spilled into business. There's a 7 thinking hats is another good one to Google around if you've got a guy on your team that's always no, but, and killing the innovation. There's some cool little workshops that you can do. And again, that's one of those things that to some people sounds soft or fluffy. Why are we going to do this workshop? Why are we going to make stuff out of pipe cleaners? Just try it. Just get what's going to go wrong. Just try it. See if it helps.
Cool. So, what are any future plans? What are the future plans for BetaBox?
Yeah. So this next year is going to be pretty exciting for us. We've got expansion on the horizon. The experimentation and innovation is just in the main part of our business is kind of in the rear view, and now it's about adding zeros, adding markets. So we want to expand. We're expanding into Houston in the early part of 2018, and the Texas area, moving throughout the Midwest. And over time, we really want to build not only a national presence, but really an international presence. There's a lot of things about BetaBox that lends itself to being an international company and having impact beyond just America, and so that's something that we're focused on. So there's going to be a lot of new announcements in terms of places that you will be seeing BetaBoxes over the next several months. And then once we can get a little bit of that expansion under our belt, just driving forward with what we have, then it's about product expansion, portfolio expansion of what we actually sell. We've got, we're among friends here, so I can talk a little bit about what's on the horizon there. Yeah. But a big request that we've had is, why are you just having, why can only schools get this, right? Could I as a parent ever pay for this? How could I experience this if I want to bring my kid? So we are going to be in this area pretty soon prototyping pop-ups where you can directly register your little one for a BetaBox experience. Doesn't even have to go to their school. It's going to be less than $25 to go to this thing, and you have a cool, awesome hands-on experience on a Saturday morning at a park. Dorothea Dix or whatever, just the locations nearby. We're going to be thinking about putting some pop-up experiments. We think that's going to be pretty cool. And
that's cool.
Over time, who knows where that leads? Maybe it leads to micro schools throughout different regions that we're doing. Who knows where that leads over time? But we're just trying to go in the direction of hands-on learning is critical, and learning environments really inform the learning that's happening. And just because I'm talking a lot about education, but maybe to give an analogy from the software world, if you think about artificial intelligence and AI, how are we training these AIs now? These narrow AIs, self-driving cars or whatever, or photo recognition, whatever it is. We're giving them data. We're feeding data into these learning algorithms. That's all we're doing. And the quality of that data is going to define the way in which that algorithm is going to operate, which I think a lot of people overdo the comparing the human brain to computers. But if you think about, all these young kids all around us, it's about putting them in those environments, giving them data and sensory input to sort of inform how they're going to go about doing things. So the quality of that environment is just so important. And unfortunately, the quality of environments at a lot of the traditional education facilities that a lot of our young kids are going to are not up to par. They're old equipment, old computers, old technology. The technology is not there. The classroom is falling. It's a bunch of ugly concrete everywhere. And there's this quote: "The future's already here. It's just not evenly distributed." So a lot of the stuff we know about AR, HoloLenses, VR, 3D printing, all this kind of stuff that are old to us. I say 3D printing. I mean, that's 5, 10 years, 20 years old,
that's
right?
True.
That's old school stuff, but it's brand new to millions and millions of kids throughout the country. And actually this year I've been through 15 cities, seen a lot of schools, and kids' eyes are still lighting up at 3D printing, even if we think it's really old. So,
I'm sure you're surprised of how many of these kids know about AI, AR.
The thing that is surprising to me is
once you
the thing that blows me away the most is like give the kids the tools and like you will see the creativity come out of them if like given the proper conditions. Creating those conditions is big. It's not about saying you've got to go to STEM and here's like the programs we're going to put you into, or you've got to do this or got to do that. It's not about really forcing a kid to go a certain direction. It's about just creating the conditions for natural inclinations to come out. And that's a lot of what happens in BetaBox because there's these different tools and they go here, they go there. It's very interesting to see, and it's very different. We don't have disciplinary problems. So if you think about what percentage of a teacher's day, and a lot of folks that are really passionate about teaching or education will go maybe into like Teach for America, and a lot of times they'll get a little jaded after going into a program and then into a school and then working for a while because it's the system kind of changes the mindset where you can lose some of the passion.
I agree.
Yeah, and it's because a lot of it's disciplinary. It's classroom management, right? Well, if you just engage the kids and get them excited, the disciplinary stuff drops by 80%. And so we have very limited disciplinary problems at our field trips because kids are just engaged because people learn in a hands-on way. So why aren't we doing more of that?
And it's crazy like some of the classes these kids are taking in schools, and they don't learn about the things that you're teaching them, right? In these BetaBox and
textbooks are outdated,
pretty amazing.
And that's part of why we've started to partner with the industry because, we've got like for the one I was talking about where we're working on this CRISPR stuff, think about how long it's going to take for CRISPR, and some people listening may not even be familiar with this. This is actually what I'm going to be for Halloween. It's a gene editing technology. Every year I'm trying to be a real stupid
That's
fun
a first.
For Halloween.
I love
and so I'm going to have
cool.
like scissors and mom genes that I'm just going to cut up and like leave them around the party that I go to, and I'll be like editing genes, cutting genes up. So anyway. If you want to, see, I encourage you to do the same.
You're going to be unique at that party.
Exactly, but
I guarantee you.
But like, think about how long that technology is going to take to hit a textbook. A really long time. But kids are getting it right now, like on BetaBox stuff, because we've partnered with the industry and we've closed that loop, that knowledge loop, to get the stuff there faster, which is important because. By the time the thing hits the textbooks, the kids are already going to need to be familiar with that because they're going to be needing to learn about it in biology, undergraduate, right? So just tightening that loop around how soon are new things that are just emerging on the horizon and getting to all areas of the education system is important.
Cool, man. That's amazing stuff. So I want to touch a little bit on. So we. Before this podcast, me and you were talking a little bit about struggles and challenges in building a company, building a brand, being an entrepreneur. What are some of the biggest obstacles you faced, and how did you really overcome them? Where's some of the struggles that you went through? Yeah,
I think there's just basics. Ultimately, you've got to take ownership of basically everything in your company, every problem, in a certain extent, which is this adds to the identity association thing from earlier. But everything kind of flows up to you. It's kind of your fault at the end of the day. You can always make make it the case that it's your fault. I'll give you an example that happened this week. Is one of our drivers went under a bridge that was too low, and the AC unit of one of our boxes just completely was crushed by the bridge. It hit the bridge.
Wow.
Yeah. So you think, all right, this is this driver's fault, full responsibility to this driver, disciplinary action, etc. But then you broaden your mindset a little bit and you think about, what was my training? Like, what training did we give to this driver? And who designed that training? And you can reverse engineer it to the point that it was like, crap, this was my fault, and here's the reason. So first of all, that's a good mindset, and I didn't start with that mindset. I used to think, it's easier to play the blame game, right? So you got to learn that thinking. So there's a lot of those kinds of things that just the taking ownership and the being able to. A big thing for me was communicating just bad news. Being able to be early about saying bad things was a big learning for me. It's just so much better to just say the shit early rather than letting it go. You got to learn this stuff. Not everybody, it's not always. It's definitely not always easy, especially if you've associated your identity with the startup, where you want to live in this sort of fuzzy happiness that is happening, to the side. And so that would be, I guess, the last thing is there's an awesome quote that, suffering is the moment you see reality for what it is for the first time, like really seeing it truthfully. And that's what suffering is, because you had a fake idea of what you thought the reality was. My company's amazing. My company culture is great. I'm the best. And then you hear, oh crap, here's all these problems and issues that I was kind of just not fully focused on. And then you go through pain and suffering, right? But then if you go through that and then you understand how to solve those problems, well, then you're coming out the other side stronger. So that just like being able to just run towards the bad thing, or like firefighter, like running into like a burning building, like that's where you need to be going. Run into the burning building, and there's like this. That's just like those kind of basic skills are key, and you don't learn those in a lot of places. There's not a lot of different places, maybe sports or some other things, but like just kind of all those different things of just mental ways of being and thinking to be successful. Those areas have been the most important for me to learn, and it's less about, oh, I don't know accounting, let me learn accounting, or I'm an engineer that can't fundraise, let me go learn that. That stuff's easy. Like if you're just a person that knows how to learn things, you can Google YouTube videos and you can figure stuff out on how to do those tactics, those skills. But those overall mindset shifts that you have to make, that might be really deeply ingrained, right? It might be, some real deep thing.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, those are the key. Those things are what hold you back. Yeah. And they're the hardest to get right, and they're the difficult habits to reform because of how deep they often are.
Yeah, you gotta. I've noticed a lot with Imaginovation is you have to learn how to pivot very quickly sometimes. And you're right, being mindful. You got to change mindsets very, very quickly sometimes. Yeah. It's crazy.
It's hard.
It's very hard.
It's hard.
It's very, very challenging.
Hard.
And also, I've noticed is, just putting in, I don't believe you have to put in a certain amount of hours per day. They say, oh, you have to work 16 hours a day to be successful. I don't know. I don't think you have to put a number on it. I'm not saying you have to, put in 5-6 hours a day. No, it requires work. I mean, I think especially the first, probably 4 to 5 years, building the foundation of the company, of the business, you have to put in the hours.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and say it's going to be 12, 15, or whatever, but putting in 7 or 8 hour day, it's not necessarily putting a number to it. It's just because you're going to have so much work to do that an 8 hour day is not enough. So that's why you're working. Yep. We know this, right? That's why you're working 12, 15 hours a day. Not forever, hopefully, but, so did you have any thoughts on that? Or?
Yeah, I mean, there's a pretty good heuristic for folks where, year 1 of a business is 2 years of work, year 2 of a business is a year and a half of work, year 3 of a business is a year of work. Now, it was pretty much double that for me. Maybe it's double that for others as well, but it's obviously going to be more work. It is going to be more hours, and, that's back to the do it while you love it. But then there's also the... are they high quality hours? So are you just like, do you have your basic, your time management down, your productivity
efficiency
down? Are they high quality hours? For a good example for me is like, if I'm trying to do anything creative, I cap out at 2-3 hours a day, to be honest with you. I mean, like, just to get really great, flow state creative hours, if you get 2 hours a day out of that, and you can actually, as a manager, maker versus manager type thinking here, if you can actually get just 2 hours of actual creative, strategic thinking out of your day, for me that's a huge win, because
you're utilizing so much brain power. You're so in the moment.
It requires. I don't think of it as time management. I think of it as I think of my day as willpower management.
Yeah.
So I think about and I schedule my day with like Pomodoros. Not I don't know if you know about the Pomodoro technique, but 25 minutes with bursts of kind of short breaks.
I've heard of it.
That is a great technique. So I kind of schedule my day with that. But then I think about like my willpower. I kind of think of it as like a game. Like you've got a certain amount of like gems or willpower that you're depleting throughout the day versus hours, and then that creative time sucks up like 50% of my willpower. Like it's just. But if you can get that, that's key, because the other piece is of course just like the interruptions, like the constant noise that's like all around you is like a big thing. So. Those pieces are just really key, and just to know like, am I actually getting a good hour right now, or am I just sort of sitting around? Am I multitasking too much? Like just try to do one thing at a time, move to the next. all that stuff. And you see a lot of folks that
work hard but work smart.
Yeah, work efficient. Focus on automation. Delegate.
You can get burnt out.
Delegate what you suck at. Like, there are other people around for a reason. Give them stuff. Give them.
That's right.
Just give them the responsibility. Like, even if it's more than you think they can do, especially if you suck at it, because they'll probably do it better.
And if you think about it, every obstacle that you're going to go through while building a company, it's a step closer to achieving that goal. You know what I mean? It's like you're breaking down, there's a wall. You got to break down that wall. I always tell people this. It's either you break it down, you jump over it, you go around it. That's what makes you an entrepreneur. It's finding ways to pivot, finding ways to adapt, finding ways to evolve.
Absolutely.
There's so many different tactics and strategies for you to, as an entrepreneur, you're a solutions provider. You find solutions for being successful, for providing value, for you growing and scaling your company, because you love it so much. You believe in it that much. You're willing to do whatever it takes to overcome that obstacle. You know what I mean?
You really can't
find ways
fake that feeling. You really can't fake that feeling. I think that at the end of the day, you sort of know who you are, and you can do you can do ethical things or unethical things. You know who you are, and it's kind of the same thing with like, do you really believe in what you're doing or not?
Yeah,
and it's totally completely okay if you're just trying to do a thing to like make money. Just be honest with yourself about that, and that's fine. It's not good or bad. But I think a lot of times folks will kind of fake the mission a little bit as like a leadership tactic, which is not bad. If you've got kind of like a boring, if you think of your company as like a boring company or whatever, I mean, and you think about, well, like, what is the meaning of like what I'm doing? What is my motivation kind of thing? If I'm just doing this, whatever, I'm not going to like call out an industry because there's probably someone listening that loves that industry. This was I thought my accountant, one time I called my accountant, like, you're not, like, what is creative about accounting? And they were like, oh no, these are all the things. And I was like completely like shot in the foot, like, oh, you're completely right. So anyway, I
love managing people's finances. There's a purpose for it. I love it.
There is though. There is
definitely, but I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, it's just like different people.
I know what
like
you mean.
That's what makes the world work. Is like you find different people find different things creative and fulfilling. But I think people kind of fake it sometimes, where you kind of if you're not, and this is back to the suffering thing. Like, if you don't actually care about your mission, but you're just saying because it sounds politically correct, like. And education is a good example. Like, a lot of folks in that, we're trying to make a difference in education. Like, I really care about education. Like, because it's personally meaningful for me for multiple reasons. But it's like. If you just say you are, like, at the end of the day, you're really not, and you're just not going to do the last, few hours of work. You're not going to send the last email. Not going to do the last thing because other priorities are more important, and that's logical, right? Like, if you have other priorities that are more important, and this goes to like every priority, like what sacrifices are you going to make when things that you prioritize are difficult, whether it's like your relationship in your business or your side project in your main business or whatever. Like, you're going to have to make those judgment calls of like what's more important, and. If you don't actually care about it, what the heck are you doing? You're just lying to yourself. Go do something you actually care about, because it will consume a great deal of your time in your life, and make that choice, wisely.
I know what you're saying. I agree. I think just be honest about it, and I think that goes a long way. Just being obviously you want to be honest to other people, be an honest and loyal person, but you want to be honest with yourself. Yeah. You know what I mean? Don't lie to yourself and say,
that's
I
the
really believe in
do.
this. Like, what's the point? Like, and that's cool. Even if you don't believe in it, but everyone needs to pay their bills. Everyone has to pay. You know what I mean? I understand. I get it. Yeah. For me, it's different. I started my business. I have the whole reason for doing it. I love what I do. I want to help people. I want to provide value. There's 1,000 reasons why. Yeah. But not everyone has the same reasons. Everyone has a different reason for doing it. Mm-hmm. But at least I'm honest with myself about it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I have a passion for it. I want to do something, but some people might fake it and they might say, but I have a passion for it too. Yeah. Okay.
And like, you're only hurting yourself if you fake it, right? You're only hurting yourself. What is the thing that Warren Buffett says? He says like, would you rather be like the worst lover in the world, but people think you're the best lover in the world, or would you rather be the opposite of that? You gotta make that decision. What does it matter if other people think you're the best at something if it's actually a horrible experience for you? If it's actually killing you inside, there's totally no point. It's like the peak of absurdity. So like, just do crap you care about, and it's very okay if that's not a business. Just because shout out to Gary Vee. I'm gonna get that domain. Gary Vee owns betabox.com, everybody. So if anybody knows him, I want that domain. But anyway, just because Gary Vee is in his element, crushing it every day, doesn't mean you have to be too. Your element might be something completely different, and that's totally okay. The world is built on people that are doing different things, and that's the entire point of everything. So just like, be you, be the most you possible. Don't lie to yourself, and like once you got that, you'll be fine.
And this is one of my other questions. So I think honesty is huge. People don't talk about honesty so much. They have all these certain tips and strategies to what they consider themselves. Basically, what you consider other people a successful entrepreneurs. So what tips would you give to these younger kids of how they can become successful? Honesty is a big part of it. People don't talk about that. So I love how you mentioned honesty. But what other tips would you actually give to future business leaders?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Hard work. There's a bunch of different elements, but
oh, sure. I mean, I've pretty much made every mistake there is. I mean, I've honesty is the whole thing with entrepreneurship or selling something. You're selling something that's almost not quite there yet. So where is the gray? It's like a lot of people where is the gray line between you're selling something that you're 80% sure is going to happen, but there's these externalities, but you're still going to sell it full force to get the thing versus I'm just completely making crap up. So at the end of the day, those are ethical calls that you have to make yourself. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you get unlucky, sometimes you get caught, whatever. But at the end of the day, if you're just here's what I think, and here's all the reasons that I think it, and you're not sugarcoating the reasons, and you're doing your best to just analyze what those reasons are, then and you can put those reasons in front of somebody, and they can make decisions for themselves. That's whether it's fundraising, right, or that's a huge one. Is you could say, we have this track record or whatever, but actually 40% of your run rate is on deals that you haven't quite closed yet, and people, that's happening all day. Yeah. Everyone's kind of doing that, and it leads to this inflation of this egoism inflation, or this fakeness inflation, where companies are actually here at a certain level, but they sound like they're over here, and it almost feels like call it the zero-sum fundraising environment, there's X amount of dollars out there. I need a percentage of those dollars. That you've got to play that game. Reject that tendency. Don't play that game. Be a unique thing, and just be more honest, because ultimately you want to work with people that are going to tell you the stuff too. So I mean, that's huge. Other non-honesty related things. Of course, we talked about the work ethic. I'm trying to come up with something that may not be obvious. Be a long-term thinker, and that's a huge thing. Network is huge. Network is your source of opportunity. So I guess it all kind of sums up with trust and courage. Trust and courage are the two things that I'd say are the most important values, and I've compromised on both and have paid the price severely as a result of that. And
I think
each one of those lessons stings more. But all values don't matter if you don't have courage, because you won't do them when it's important. You'll make the wrong decision in the moment that it's most critical if you don't have courage. And then trust is your only currency as a founder of whatever else. It's your Uber rating, your sharing economy showed us this. Yeah. It's all just trust. Trust will lead to money. Trust will lead to opportunities. If people don't trust you, they're not going to do business with you in the long run. So trust and courage. All else follows from there.
Cool. Love it. Amazing. So I always ask these last three questions.
Okay.
I call them the three hows.
Okay.
So how do you define failure? How do you define entrepreneurship? And how do you define success?
Crap. Okay. I have slightly not canned answers. So failure is, I'm just going to steal a quote that I like the most, is going from this is success actually. Success is going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. I like that one a lot.
I've heard of that one.
Yeah, that one's out there. That's not a Maroney original by any means. But
what's a Maroney original?
For success?
For failure, then entrepreneurship, then success.
Okay, so failure is, within the context of entrepreneurship, I don't think is running out of money. I think it's running out of willpower. I mean, I see failure as tautological. I see failure as when you decide you failed. Because I've had negative money in the bank account a few times, and it's still going. And it's not just running out. It's not just running out of money, right? It's running out of willpower. It's that last shred of just choosing to give up. Many times, choosing to give up is super rational and the right thing to do, and sometimes it's not. And that's what it is. It's when you choose that it's over. That's the failure.
Failure and giving up are very different, aren't they?
Oh, sure, yeah.
And everyone that I've had on this podcast has said the same thing.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
So that's that. And then you talked about entrepreneurship net. I see it as doing more with less. It's the best definition of entrepreneurship. It's making a lot out of a little. That's what I've been doing my whole life with the cicada wings, the bugs, no value there. Turning those into the $7 Christmas ornaments.
Yeah.
Then shipping containers. There's no value there. Turning those into something cool. That's what every founder does more with less. That's what it's all about.
Cool.
And so that's what I would describe entrepreneurship as. And then. I mean, success for me, it's not extrinsic. I think it's all intrinsic. It's success for me personally is figuring out how to actually like be in the present moment every day and like be completely coherent with like all of my principles and like how I feel about myself. It's a lot of intrinsic mumbo jumbo that people don't care about as much, but that's important to me.
You'd be surprised.
At the end of the day, you can believe in what you're doing. You're coherent with everything, and you're what you're doing in that moment lines up with what you believe as a person or whatever else. That coherence is is a very valuable thing. So just like focusing on that, to me, that's like a successful life. And part of that is like being the most you possible, doing what you love, etc. So that to me is success. And then for me, the extrinsic wins along the way are just like gravy on the top, nice things, nice milestones,
icing on the cake is the monetary side of it.
Yeah. But anyway, I guess that is success to
cool.
me. Yep.
Moroni Answers.
That's
what I wanted.
Yep, that's right.
So where can people find you? Twitter, Facebook, website? I know I saw the new website. Looks awesome, by the way.
Appreciate it. Yeah, new website. Let us know what you think. BetaBoxLabs.com.
BetaBoxLabs.com.
I feel like a rapper right now. I feel like a rapper kind of on with Charlemagne the God right now. That's kind of how I feel. Check it out.
I wish I was Charlemagne, man.
Stuff is dope.
Not yet. Charlemagne the God.
But anyway, so you can check out the website for BetaBox. If you're a school or somebody within education, feel free to contact us. We're doing all sorts of stuff. We love getting feedback from teachers on what we're doing, especially if you're in industry and you're interested in the corporate social responsibility angle, workforce development, university recruiting, basically anything that touches lifelong learning or being passionate about educating the next generation. Get in touch with us. Like I mentioned, the Powered by BetaBox business, where we're partnering with industry, mostly STEM companies, but also others, pretty much everybody, to accelerate what we're doing. The personal side, Twitter, Sean Moroni, is going to be the best place to find me. You can email me also, Sean@betaboxlabs.com.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome, man. Cool. Thanks for coming. This has been great. Thank you so much.
More.
It's been definitely great having you. And everyone, thank you so much. Michael Giorgio, co-founder at Imaginovation, and this is Tales from the Pros. Until next time, thanks. Hey guys, thanks a lot for watching Tales from the Pros. Please subscribe to our YouTube page and also follow our social media. There are links somewhere around here. But we really appreciate it, guys. Thanks for all the support. And I'm going to be giving you awesome content continuously. And we look forward to seeing you soon.